In 1989, Michael Keaton became Batman. Jump nearly 10 years later and he became a snowman in JackFrost, a 1998 Christmas movie where Keaton plays a loving father and blues musician called JackFrost, who is tragically killed in a car accident, whom is then brought back to life via a magic harmonica. Yep, those magical harmonicas will do that. Only he comes back to life in the form of a snowman. And to be honest, he looks pretty terrifying. So it must have been one of those more slightly rubbish magical harmonicas. But he eventually reconnects with his son Charlie and tries to help him through the grieving process, and even tries to make improvements in his life and encourage him to rejoin the hockey team. However, as the weather warms up, JackFrost comes to the realization that his time may be up in this film, which, although tries to be heartwarming, completely fell flat and was met with an icy reception upon its release. So, to end the Christmas season as the year comes to a close, we are going to explore this often forgotten about Christmas movie. Probably one of the most unintentional scary Christmas movies ever. So let's look into 10 things that you didn't know about the 1998 JackFrost movie and check it out.
Well, since you showed up, Mom thinks I'm nuts, Rory Buck wants to kill me, and I'm pretty sure my dad's a snowman.
So what's the problem?
Number 10, based on old folklore. JackFrost is indeed based on a folklore that is believed to have started as an Anglo-Saxon Norse winter tale, where JackFrost is said to be the physical embodiment of snow, ice, winter, and all things cold. He originally looked like an old man with long white hair and a beard, where he was otherwise known as Old Man Winter. JackFrost has been among us in pop culture ever since the 19th century. There have even been several movies made about the character, including a 1964 Russian movie and a 1979 stop-motion animation TV special on NBC, where the character was shown to be pixie-like, which is a common depiction of the character. JackFrost would even become a character in Marvel Comics, as well as appear in the Tim Allen Christmas movie The Santa Claus 3, where he was played by Martin Short. And long before any of all of them, there was also a cartoon short in 1934, where once again JackFrost was portrayed as being pixie-like. Number 9. There are similarities between the movie and a British cartoon. Now this may be a stretch, but I can't help but feel like there are many similarities between JackFrost and the animated British TV movie The Snowman, which itself is based on a 1978 picture book. And the animated movie is probably most well known for its famous musical number, I'm Walking in the Air. Now, to be fair to the JackFrost movie, snowmen coming to life are actually common staples of Christmas tales. After all, look at Frosty the Snowman, which is based on a 1950 Christmas song about a snowman coming to life, of which would lead to a popular 1969 TV movie, which once again was animated. However, there are some striking similarities between the 1998 JackFrost movie and the 1982 Snowman TV movie, in that they are both about a lonely boy who builds a snowman, and through the power of magic, the snowman comes to life, where initially only the boy characters can communicate with the snowman, where a magical bond and friendship ensues, and both movies explore themes of childhood isolation, loneliness, and grief. And I also can't help but think that both snowmen even look alike, but I don't know, maybe that's just me. And sadly, both stories even end with the snowmen no longer being in the boy's life. Now, I'm not saying that the makers of the JackFrost movie were definitely influenced by the snowman, but there are several similarities between the two. Number 8. Original choice for director. JackFrost was a Warner Brothers production, and oh boy, the late 90s was a dark chapter in the history of the studio, thanks to many large budgeted failures like Batman and Robin, The Avengers, Wild Wild West, Still, and Sphere, not to mention the aborted Superman Lives and Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian projects. All I can say for the studio is thank the heavens for The Matrix, which eventually came along in 1999. Jack Frost itself shows signs of being a troubled production, on the account that it had 4 writers, one of whom being Mark Steven Johnson, who previously wrote the Grumpy Old Men movies and would go on to write and direct the 2003 Daredevil movie, as well as Jonathan Roberts, who previously co-wrote The Lion King and James and the Giant Peach and would go on to co-write Monsters Inc. So there was some talent on board, and none other than Sam Raimi was hired to be the director of Jack Frost. Yet before he directed movies about a Spider-Man, he was going to direct a movie about a snowman. So with Sam Raimi on board, what happened that caused him to then leave the project? Number 7, the original choice for Jack Frost. In the early days of Jack Frost's production, George Clooney was cast as the title character of Jack Frost. However, he walked out of the production to go on to star as Batman in Batman and Robin instead, which probably would have seemed like a good idea at the time. I mean, after all, it's Batman. But yeah, look, condolences on that one. So Clooney went from Christmas snow jingles to Schumacher's bat nipples. And in turn, this caused Sam Raimi to also leave the production. And supposedly Raimi and his brother Ivan were working on their own version of the script. And so, with Raimi out the door, Troy Miller was then hired as director, with Jack Frost being his first feature film. Before Jack Frost, he had directed several short films, as well as TV shows like the Super Mario Bros. Super Show and Pee-wee's Playhouse. Number 6. Other choices for Jack Frost. So with George Clooney walking away from the part, the production then decided to replace the actor with another Batman, that being Michael Keaton. However, before Keaton landed the part, several other actors were considered, including Billy Bob Thornton, Dennis Quaid, Mel Gibson, Kurt Russell, and Kevin Costner. So it seems like they were looking for a serious character actor, probably in an attempt to make the whole being a living snowman thing more believable. To be fair, Keaton does give the part his all, and actually does bring a lot of warmth to his performance. Which is funny because that very same year, he starred in a movie called Desperate Measures, where he played a real nasty piece of work, which I guess shows off his true range as an actor. In addition to that, according to IMDb, Glee star Darren Criss auditioned for the part of Charlie Frost, but the role went to Jonathan Cross, who also starred with Michael Keaton in the as mentioned Desperate Measures. And Cross is still going strong as an actor today. And the movie-loving website also claims that Renee Zellweger was the original choice for Jack Frost's widow, Gabby Frost, but the part went to the late Kelly Preston. So even though they got a new Jack Frost in the form of Michael Keaton and his pointy eyebrows, the departure of George Clooney would actually cause other problems in the production, other than Sam Raimi dropping out as director. Number 5. The Jack Frost puppet had to be redesigned. The Jim Henson Creature Shop came on board to create the living, walking, talking puppetry effects of Jack Frost. The company has a pretty good rep for creating creature effects in movies, such as The Dark Crystal, Labyrinth, The Witches, and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. However, when it came to Jack Frost, the company had quite the challenge on their hands, as they had designed the snowman puppet to look like George Clooney and share some of his facial features. However, once Clooney left the production, the company then had to make slight changes to the puppet in order to make it look more like Michael Keaton. And yeah, this is supposedly what a Michael Keaton snowman looks like. Although in some of the facial features you can still see a little bit of George Clooney in there. But either way, it definitely has Michael Keaton's eyebrows, so I'll give it that. Some of the CGI provided for the character, particularly when the puppet couldn't be used, was provided by Industrial Light and Magic. But to me, the computer effects in Jack Frost just have that awkward late 90s animated look, and doesn't really work. Either way, no matter what you say about the Jack Frost movie, the snowman puppetry effects were actually pretty good. Good, but also kind of terrifying. Okay, a lot terrifying. Number 4. Michael Keaton performed 2 songs for Jack Frost. So when it comes to the music of Jack Frost, the movie was composed by South African musician Trevor Rabin, and his score is pretty good, and does touch on the heartstrings when need be, as well as sounding adventurous, almost giving it that Amblin sound. And some parts of the score even incorporates blues music, as blues music is a part of the movie. He had previously scored Con Air, Armageddon, and Enemy of the State. So Jack Frost was something of a genre changer for the composer, as he had mainly scored action movies at that point. The movie's soundtrack also features a ton of pop songs from artists who were popular at the time of the movie's release, featuring pop groups such as Hanson and the Spice Girls, of whom wrote Christmas songs for the movie. So Jack Frost was definitely a product of the time that it was made in. What's really fascinating is that Michael Keaton himself actually performed 2 songs for Jack Frost, those being Have a Little Faith and Frosty the Snowman. And I guess it makes sense, as he is playing a blues musician. But here's the thing, actors usually get dubbed by professional singers, but not Michael Keaton. Nope, he went all out and performed the songs himself. The 2 songs are available to watch on the old YouTubes. And I've got to say, Michael Keaton does have a interesting voice. Someone in the comments said that he has a sort of Joe Crocker voice, and yeah, I'll agree with that. Number 3, filming location. Jack Frost was mainly filmed in California, but considering California isn't exactly known for its snowy winter wonderlands, most of the movie was filmed on studio sets, namely at Warner Bros. Burbank Studios, which meant all the scenes involving the Frost house and surrounding street, as well as other snowy landscapes, were filmed on sets built in a studio dome in order to look like natural icy snowbound scenery. Jack Frost's cinematographer was Laszlo Kovacs, whom had worked on several classic movies like Easy Rider and Ghostbusters, and he had to create a system whereby flicking a few buttons on a computer, they could change the time of day required for the scene, whether it be daytime, morning, noon, or even nighttime, thanks to the placing of studio lights, which is really quite innovative for its time when you think about it. Although I did always think that the daytime scenery didn't look quite right. Like there was just something off and artificial about it, but couldn't really place my finger on what was causing it to look so fake. But nevertheless, it just kind of goes to show you how Warner Bros. Really went above and beyond and were really hoping that Jack Frost would be a magical movie hit. Number 2, it came out shortly after a horror movie version of Jack Frost. Okay, one of the reasons Jack Frost may not have been a hit is because it came out not too long after a horror movie version of the character came out, also called Jack Frost, in which, just like the Warner Brothers version, the character was depicted as a snowman, be that a homicidal one. The horror version of Jack Frost was released in November 1997, whereas the whimsical one was released in December 1998. And what probably may have added to the confusion is the fact that although on the horror movie version poster Jack Frost looks like a snow demon, in the actual film he really looks quite similar to the Jack Frost seen in the 1998 version. And both movies see the main Jack Frost character starting off as a human before getting killed and coming back to life as snowmen. So for all we know, parents probably didn't take their kids to see the 1998 Jack Frost, as they may have thought that it was a brutal horror movie. However, one thing the horror version of Jack Frost was able to do that the Warner Bros. One couldn't was create a sequel, which came out in 2006 and had the very interesting title of Jack Frost 2 Revenge of the Mutant Killer Snowman. Number 1. Early bad reviews may have hurt its box office performance. According to good old Wikipedia, one day before Jack Frost's release, it got bogged down by a ton of bad reviews, which no doubt instantly put the movie at a disadvantage and sealed its fate, in that it wasn't going to be a high box office performer. Most of the bad criticisms Jack Frost got was critics complaining about how the Jack Frost snowman looked, with Roger Ebert calling the look of the snowman as, quote, repulsive, right up there with the likes of Chucky and the intestinal desert hole in Return of the Jedi. He also questioned how Jim Henson's workshop and Industrial Light and Magic could create something so hideous. And yes, Jack Frost took a massive hit in the box office, with it only making $34 million on a budget that sat somewhere between $40 to $85 million, making it a massive failure. However, it's not all doom and gloom. It did get some praise, as the New York Times gave it a more optimistic review, praising the movie's approach to death and fatality, and being honest and not sugarcoating things. So the question is, what do I think of Jack Frost? Look, it's no masterpiece. In many areas, the movie just doesn't work, nor does it have the momentum to be a memorable movie. I think those who were making it were hoping that this will be a family movie up there with the likes of E.T. and Harry and the Hendersons, but it ended up being more like the 1995 theatrical Casper movie. Jack Frost tries to be a meaningful movie, full of growth, wonder, and emotional journeys, but it just cannot live up to other family favourites which have become classics. Also, the movie's look varies. Certain shots and scenes can range from looking impressive and magical to some shots and scenes having a sort of cheapness about them, as mentioned. But that said, Jack Frost 98 does have a lot of heart, and it does try ever so hard to be a magical journey to tug on the heartstrings, and you can't fault the movie for trying. The movie does have soul, as opposed to many cash grab entertainment movies that we get these days. So it's a nice, harmless, fun little movie that small children may enjoy while it's on. It's just nothing too memorable or spectacular, despite trying really hard to do so. But it is still a good and worthy effort. And you know what? That's okay. It's perfectly fine to every now and then have a movie of the yeah, that's okay variety. However, I do think that the popularity of Jack Frost 98 has grown in time, and those who grew up watching it now as adults do have a nostalgic fondness of it. So yeah, I think it's safe to say that it's a cult movie, or at least becoming a cult movie. Anyway, I'm Minty, and if they make more Jack Frost horror movies, then they must do Jack Frost in space. See ya!